Welcome back, and you join us as we continue our coverage from round number 6 of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series at Ottosdal, brought to you by N1 4x4 Cruiser and Toyota, your four-wheel drive experts in association with Pirelli. A big story at this round was well over 50 cars in the entry queue, making sure there was going to be new blood coming into racing. And Ottosdal, as we'd seen before the break, for the kiddies, the bikes and the quads, it was going to be an absolute dust bowl. Before we went into it, it was a prize-giving ceremony from the previous round, so everyone knew exactly who they had to chase down when they went out into the lineup queue. It was going to be very fun to see a couple of new cars and new vehicles try and take on Ottosdal. The story of the quads and bikes, though, was a lot of guys not making the cut and having to be time-barred, showing how challenging the track truly was, and all the cars heading out to round number 6 of racing action knew they were in for a wild, woolly and dusty day. As always, has been the story of the 2018 season thus far. Wolf Peter Fumfai in the Class B single-seater would open up the track. Peter is on form at the moment. He's been taking home championship points at every single round. This time, the D7 of Manus de Bria and Sean Limper on the navigational notes would be doing the chasing. Michel Bonner on the B20, looking for one of his best drives of the season. He headed out the Tire Mart Class B20 machine. It was going to be a huge advantage to have qualified well and to be running well in the championship, therefore setting off inside of the top 10. Colin Croshaw and Marina van Schalkwijk doing a good job this season, keeping their noses clean, bringing it home every single time. Brendan Martin coming off one of his best drives of the season at the previous round. Looks like he's found the sweet spot on his vehicle, and he'll once again try and chase down on Bonner and Fumfai. Jan Prinsloo and Inga Kirsten, the first of the Class B side-by-side format cars. Tight in there though, isn't it? Almost looks like a single-seater. Jaco Rousseau in the B46 would have to do the big chase down. These were potentially not the guys that were going to go on to take the overall wins at the Ottosdal event. The terrain telling us before the break in the quads and the cars how fast it is when it gets into the open land section. So possibly one of the Class A special vehicles or a production vehicle we're going to be able to go on and set the fastest laps and therefore take the overall. Johan Basson and Johnny Walker, very experienced pairing as we go on board with the second of the production vehicles, and this was a crew that were a massive threat for the overall. Hein Kruger and Paul Murray know exactly what to do in this kind of terrain in the Hein Core Toyota Hilux. Look at the prep on that vehicle. Could be heading to Dakar. Phenomenal. Murray knows this area oh so well. Hein Kruger, so good on the wheel and very aggressive. Good at saving the car, good at pushing, knows exactly which points to pick up on. In the G category, which is the side-by-sides, the Can-Am Maverick of Marcus Labuskakny and Neil Putter would be dropping the hammer hard. These guys would have to hope and pray that they had enough tear-offs on their goggles, because they were going to be eating dust, certainly for the next 120 Ks or so. Sifi van Schalkwijk and Arthur Croshaw in the bug. They would have some company this time around. A couple of Beetles, or should I say Beetle chassis, were entered, starting a little bit later down in the queue. John Boxhorn came home with a top 10 overall at the previous round. The B99 knows how to bring home the bacon. He does like a little bit more technical, and the way the track was laid out today was more of a horsepower high-speed setup. Julio Ferreira with Rickers Ferree on the notes this time, running their mud format tyres, so they maybe knew something that the rest didn't, and knew that the track was going to be dusted up and they were going to be desperately trying to find some grip. Kurbis and Marinda Ferree, they'd be chased down by Oki and Jean-Andre Kruger. The Class E Buckies, 3 all in all. Oki and Jean-Andre, Andre van der Berg and Louis van der Berg, as well as Johan Wiese and Arnold Smit, would take up the big chase in the E's. In the Class D's, Louis Weichelt and Heineke Erasmus getting a little bit wild off the big jumps in the diesel turbo powered Land Cruiser. Gotta love that thing belching out the black smoke. They've worked hard on their setup, but Vos Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter in the T41 looked like they were going to be a pre-race favorite as they hammered it out in an almost full national spec Toyota. Glenn Turon and Malcolm Stewart, constant development on the T110, trying to see what they could do for the Ford fans out there. Just two competitors in the Class Ts, but they would no doubt be some of the fastest guys to throw down the numbers. Andre Vermeulen, Junior and Senior, heading on out in what we usually call the ice cream bucky, based on a Land Rover, and they'll be chased down by Alec. Alec doing a nice job in the Class Bs. Wayne Smith and Billy Dupree, so strong. Had some mechanical problems at the previous round, but before they had those issues, they were on point for a win. Piet van Rensburg and Rupert van der Rijst, camouflaged, trying to fly under the radar at this round. Cobus van Aert and Kieran Vandenberg in the D63. The D category, 5 entries all in all, trying to get it jump. In the G category, Philip and Xander de Vries, another one of those spectacular Can-Am Mavericks, dancing their way around. They'd be stuck inside the top 20 for the most part of the first lap and taking a lot of dust into that open cab. Remember, the G category, no windscreen. Johan Vieser pushing on hard with Dion and Simone Moans in the B91. Straight after that, the never-ending start line queue of 50 plus. It's not a complaint, believe me. I am super pumped to see this many drivers and cars lining up at the halfway marker of any season. Gert Madelenstein, the F4. The F vehicles, 2 crews going at it to see what they can do. And then this was a different look and feel. Based on a Beetle, near on zero suspension, Johan Faree and Vickers Liebenberg, one of their homemade vehicles with only around about 30 mils of travel. They would have a tough day, believe me. Leroy Van Niekerk and Sean Van Tonder, a couple of corporate vehicles previously owned by Evan Hutchison. He's clean shop to head to the Arab Emirates to prepare a couple of the top crews over there to get ready for Dakar, which means his vehicles have gone to new people. The second of those was Gavin and Lindy Van Niekerk. Obviously had a fun time at one of the corporate days and decided to put their hand in their pocket, buy the cars, take them home, put them on a trailer, and come racing with us. We welcome you guys with open arms. Hope you have a great time out at the round 6 Ottosdal round of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series. Nadia Esterhazen and Michelle Besson just tippy-toeing their C12 machine into the first couple of kilometers. Meanwhile, at the halfway mark of the track, Monis Dupree and Sean Limper were doing an incredible job in the unstoppable Colt D7 to run the pace out front. Wolf Peter Funfai, as he so often does, allowing a couple of cars to go on through, and then he's got some dust to chase. Michelle Barner in second place, and on cue, Wolf Peter Funfai just slotting himself into third. It's a strategy that a lot of the single-seaters do run. Don't necessarily like to have to do all the running out front. It does take a lot of energy to spot the markers and figure out all your navigation as well as doing the driving. Brendan Martin getting closed down quickly now by Hein Kruger and Paul Moret in the D19. The D's 5 crews and 5 strong crews at that as well. It's going to be interesting to see how high Hein Kruger and Paul Moret would be able to climb come the end of lap number 1. For now, they were inside of a top 5 overall and doing a nice job to run second wheel at the moment to the Colt. Join us after the break as we pick up on the rest of the racing action to see who walks away as champions at Ottosdal, round 6 of the Africa Off-Road Championship Racing Series.
This week on the Bike Show, Triumph is back in the country and we celebrate with the Speed Triple RS. Plus, South Africa has its own new tyre brand, and Harry and I put it to the test at the 8 Hour at Pekisa Raceway. This week on the Bike Show.
Camera rolling and action.
Be you! Be youthful.
Yeah, what do you got that we don't got? We're in charge of swag.
You know it! Be beautiful. Be unique. Be Yonsei.
Mommy looking so crazy right now. Your mom's got me looking so crazy right now.
Be yourself.
It's my dream to be a knight.
I want to be a princess. What a twist.
They gon' be lit.
Be young! Nailed it. Whatever you do, always be you and star in your own unique story.
Fantastic.
Welcome back to round 6 racing action at Ottosdal, the next round of the Africa Off-Road Championship Race Series for 2018. Before the break, most of lap 1 was completed by our top runners. We started to make our way outside then of the top 10 to see who was looking good and who was finding their way through and clear out of the dust. The Ottosdal area, dry as a bone, right smack bang in the middle of winter. And all the drivers knew exactly what that was about. The rest of the day was going to be blindly driving into dust. Julia Ferreira and Rickers Fari know exactly how to do this, and I think in the P category they were going to be one of the big threats to try and climb the ladder. Kobus and Marinda Fari though, the man and wife pairing, so don't discount the P44 for climbing up there. Louis Weichelt and Heineke Erasmus had got a good pace going and a good rhythm in the N1 4x4 Land Cruiser. The turbo diesel firing on all cylinders and belching out the dust and smoke, but this time around picking up the pace. Nice development coming in from the race program from the N1 4x4 crew. Force Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter trying to taste victory for the first time in 2018 in the T class, but they were going to be pushed super hard because they had some key players on their wheel. Glenn Tarrant and Malcolm Stewart in the T110. A lot of development going into this vehicle pre and mid-season. This was a 2-horse race in the T's. The story though in the race was the fastest lap coming in from Wayne Smith and Billy Dupree once again in the D category. So they were trying desperately to get through the traffic and open up the taps on their vehicle to try and close in on a podium. Remember, they were one of the fastest crews before they had mechanicals at the previous round. Alec Abbott, coming off a top 10 finish at the previous round in the B53 machine, was sitting just outside the top 20 overall on track. And after that was Andre Vermeulen, junior and senior, in the ice cream van. Incredibly spec vehicle, bespoke, built from the ground up, father and son project. And once you finish a project, what do? You go racing in it. That's fantastic for us. Pete van Rensburg and Rupert flying under the radar in the camo colors, but they're about to get eaten up by the very experienced Johan Wieser and Arnie Schmidt. The E category giving us 3 cars to choose from, and in the Bs, as always, the biggest entry on the queue, 12 cars all in all. Dion and Simone Moans trying to get themselves inside of a top 10 overall. That is their goal at every single one of the races, especially when you talk about how deep the field is. In the E category, Andre and Louis van Rensburg trying to climb the ladder, 3 cars to choose from. And then the first of the former King Price Insurance buggies just sliding their way on through, getting chased down by Gert and Madeline Steen. The F category, remember some of our older vehicles out there, Gert and Madeline Steen trying to take another win ahead of Piet van Rensburg and Rupert van der Rijst. On board once again, Paul Murray on the notes, guiding Hein Kruger as they start to build their pace and get faster and faster right up on the back wheel of the cars up the road now. This is going to be the dice then for the Class Ds between Kruger and the Colt. Michelle Bonner in good shape at the moment, second wheel right now. Johan Wieser and Arnie Schmidt have made a couple of passes towards the end of the loop, and they are starting to climb the ladder in the E's. Remember at the previous round, the D-Class and E-Class vehicles were the giant killers with a high attrition rate at the former event. Brendan Martin now getting closed down by Glenn Tarrant and Malcolm Stewart in the bush. And the Bucky will make mincemeat in the more technical sections, having a much higher pace and a tighter turning circle with all-wheel drive. Martin, for now then, is going to have to take the roost and take the dust for the next couple of Ks. What a lot of the B-Class drivers tend to do though, as soon as a pass has been made, they literally have to back out of the dust, otherwise it just becomes too dangerous. Louis Weichelt and Heineke Erasmus doing an amazing job to stay now inside of a top 10 and chase down on potentially their first podium in the Class Ds for 2018. The buggies bucking and bouncing their way through. Vanny Kirk having an incredible journey so far alongside Van Tonder. And they're looking like they may be able to challenge for a top 5 drive in their category for the Open Class Bs. Gert and Madeline Steen in the F4s at the moment leading their category. Wolf Peter von Fey having some problems towards the end of the lap. I think just getting caught in way too much of the dust, and that's going to drop him way down, and he may well drop out of the top 5 for the first time this season. Hein Kruger and Paul Murray are going to be closing him down. Horst Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter. Lovely to hear that Mustang just roaring away. Brilliant note coming out of the exhaust on that Ford Ranger. as they now really start to fly. Problems late in the lap as well for Manus de Prier. So the Colt has slid backwards, and that was the story of Ottosdal. A lot of the guys that ran good pace early on got just chewed up in the dust. And then you lose your markers, you lose your confidence, you lose your flow. Kobus and Marin de Furi were losing nothing. They were actually closing in and throwing down some of the best lap times at the end of the course. Boxhorn as well in the B19, even though he was coughing and spluttering his way through, he was starting to close in on the pits. Fueling became a big issue. The drivers didn't realize how much fuel they were going to be burning up in the dust, with a lot of the tires spinning up. As we see in desert races and a lot of the sand races, you use far more petrol than you could ever imagine. And a lot of these drivers having to just almost limp their cars back to the pits at the end of the lap. Glenn Turon and Malcolm Stewart in the T10. They'd been dropped by Vos Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter, so they weren't on points to take their win on the season, but they were still quite comfortably in second place, albeit to the tune of around about 15 minutes. Abbott in the 53, he got himself up to try and challenge for a top 5 placing, with the Formulans heading on in. Don't worry, it's not the sun going down there. That is just so much dust hanging in the air and blocking all of the light into the cameras. Andre and Louis van der Berg in the E15 on point for a top 3 with 3 cars entered. And as the sun did start to come on down and low, the cars were making their way into the finish line. High fives from the crews. Julio Ferreira and Rickers Prinsloo walking away with a win in the Class Ps. No big surprise to see Hein Kruger and Paul Moret take the big win in the production vehicle Class Ds. They did a rock solid drive. Vos Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter in the T41 doing a good enough job to take their first victory of the season in the Class Ts, even though they lost their bonnet along the way. They worked hard for that one and great development on their vehicle. Glenn Turon and Malcolm Stewart would take second place finish in the Class Ts. Manus de Prier and Sean Limper just getting lost in the dust late on in the loop. They would get a good finish and a second place spot in the Class Ds. Sifu van Skalkbeek and Arthur Croshaw in the B category getting their win. The bug coming good in the dust at round number 6 at Ottosdal. Kobus and Marin de Furi getting a good drive going. They would actually end up in second place in the Class Ps. And John Boxhorn doing an amazing drive, coming into his own in the mid part of the season in the B99, getting second place in the Class Bs. One by one they came on home, and when you have to put your lights on because the dust is so thick, then you must know. The B31 coming on, that was Tion Prinsloo and Inge Kirsten just off the box in 4th place for them. In the E category, it was all about Johan Wieser and Arne Schmidt getting the win over Oki Kruger and Jean-Dre Kruger. And then the Formulans getting a nice run going in their B14. 5th place drive for them. In the C category, Colleen Croshaw getting the win alongside Marina van Skalkbeek. Let's go through the classes then. In the Class B, Sifu van Skalkbeek and Arthur Croshaw bring home the bug for a win ahead of Boxhorn and Abbott. 3rd place for Abbott. That shows he is in good form heading to the rest of the season. Class C, Colleen Croshaw, confirmation of her win alongside Marina van Skalkbeek, with the rest of the category DNFing. And in the Class P, Julio Ferreira and Rickers Prinsloo get their win in the bag. Class D for production vehicles, Hein Kruger and Paul Moret beating out Manus de Prier and Sean Limper, with Louis Weichaltz and Heineke Erasmus 3rd place credited, but the first of the DNFs. Class E, Johan Wieser and Arnie Schmidt taking the win ahead of Oki and Jadre Kruger. And Class F, Gert and Madeleine Stein get the win ahead of Piet van Rensburg and Rupert van der Rijst. In the Class G, side-by-sides, both of the crews DNFing unfortunately, so we turn our attention to Class T, where Vos Prinsloo and Kenneth Venter got their big win ahead of Glenn Turon and Malcolm Stewart. And that was the story of Ottosdal, round number 6, and officially the halfway marker of the incredible Africa Off-Road Series for 2018. When the trucks were packed, everyone was now thinking about one thing. Round 7, Waterval on the 7th of July. We'll be there, and we'll bring you all the action.